Hello and welcome. My name is Maria Fontanaza, editor of Food Safety Tech, and I will be your host for today's webinar, Mars Streamlines Global Quality and Food Safety Processes, sponsored by ETQ, and featuring Jamie Boyce, Corporate R&D Processes and System Director at Mars, and Glenn Frazier, Senior Director Solutions Architect at ETQ. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. If you have problems with the audio, please try to increase your computer's volume. If you are still having issues, please log out and try to reconnect. Please contact Veronica Allen via the chat box to let her know that you are having sound issues. After our speakers' presentations, you will be asked to participate in a quick poll about your interest in ETQ's products and services. And now let me introduce today's speakers. Jamie Boyce, Corporate R&D Processes and Systems Director at Mars, is a food scientist by training, receiving her BS degree from the Ohio State University. She holds an MS in Animal Sciences focused on meat science from the University of Kentucky. She has been with Mars for 16 years, the last 4 leading corporate R&D systems in innovation, food safety, and quality. In that capacity, Jamie defines the strategy for R&D processes and systems with the global segments of Mars Incorporated, working in lockstep with Mars Digital Technologies to bring processes to life through enabling IT systems and solving complex problems with predictive tools and analytics. Jamie's team works in partnerships with the segments at Mars to ensure processes and systems are deployed into the Mars factories, businesses, and markets, and drive continuous improvement of them through feedback channels. Jamie is passionate about building high-performance teams, believing that the contribution of a great team is much higher than the contribution of a great individual. She strives to ensure that Mars Incorporated has the best IT systems supporting R&D that are globally aligned. Glenn Frazier, Senior Director Solutions Architect at ETQ, has worked in software technology for over 30 years and with ETQ for 20 of those years. A programmer analyst by training, he helps organizations achieve operational excellence. Glenn has worked with Mars since their deployment and lives in Nova Scotia, Canada. And now I'll turn the floor over to Glenn.
Thank you. I'm going to provide a quick introduction to ETQ to get things started. We're a very focused organization. We've got over 25 years in the quality and safety space. We are rooted in quality management. Our founders were lead assessors, auditors for a US-based registrar. We are a true quality management solution, not just a bolt-on to some other process or application that you may own. And we have staying power. We've got over 500 customers and have a very strong 96% customer retention rate. We've got over 300 employees who are dedicated to the quality management and the safety space. Our solution is very flexible. You're going to find deployed across a wide variety of industries. And additionally, we're well regarded by the analysts that are covering this space. Next, I'll tell you about some of our customers in the food and beverage space. We've been partnering with leaders in the food and beverage space for a significant number of years. These include producers such as Mars, who are featured today, to food delivery like Subway, Wawa, as well as some other very, very recognizable brands and organizations. Food and beverage companies such as these partner with ETQ due to a number of factors. Our very flexible platform with comprehensive functionality and a wide range of QMS and safety processes. Our years of expertise. Our ability to help address a broad variety of compliance requirements and the various standards that our customers have to adhere to. some predefined best practices that permit fast deployment while being adaptable to suit ever-changing business needs, and our flexible training options. We enable our customers to administer their own solution and to deploy it as they see fit. Next, it's my pleasure to hand things off to Jamie, who I've had the pleasure of working with for quite some time. Jamie, over to you to tell us about Mars and your global quality and food safety processes.
Great, thanks, Glenn. Before talking too much about quality specifically at Mars, I thought I would just introduce Mars to this group because it might be a company that you don't know too much about. So I'd just like to start off by talking about the Mars vision, which is the world that we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. And that really allows us to focus on creating a better world tomorrow, whether that has to do with the improvement of food safety, sustainability, or those key ambitions that we're focused on. And these ambitions of Mars are backed by the more than 125,000 associates that work for Mars around the world. So just quickly, I'm going to show you Mars at a glance. I'll talk briefly about our business, our brands, and our beliefs. So this comprehensive slide just gives you a one-page overview of the company. So as mentioned, we're around 125 plus associates that work across our business segments around the world. And many of you might know Mars very well for our Mars Wrigley segment, which have some of our best chocolate and confection products in the world. But we also have the pet care segment with brands that you might recognize like Pedigree, Iams, Whiskas, as well as our food business. And most notably in North America, Uncle Ben's is one of our key brands. But we have a presence all around the world, and we were founded in 1911 by Frank Mars. So that's when we made the first candies in Tacoma, Washington, just in his kitchen. So a little interesting fact for you guys. We've got several billion-dollar brands. You can see those featured, and hopefully many of those brands look quite familiar to you. I think one of the key interesting facts about Mars that I think makes it a bit of a differentiator is the fact that it's still a privately owned company. And so that gives us a lot of freedom, freedom to invest back into our business and freedom to invest into key interest topics, like I mentioned, like sustainability. So you can find Mars nearly everywhere around the world, and this gives you a little bit of a split of our markets and where we're playing. But we do have presence on all of the major continents, as you can see. Quite a lot of business in the Americas as well in Europe, and we have several emerging markets. And as far as those 125 associates are concerned, it's really how we get things done. It's based on really great people. And because of the great people, Mars has been identified as one of the great places to work for several years. So that's something, of course, we're also very proud of. And you can see that here featured in a couple of these snapshots. And just to touch a bit about how we get things done, the Mars is really based upon the 5 principles. And this is something that unites all of the Mars associates around the world: quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. And these 5 principles really unite our associates, unite the 450 sites across 80 different countries into one clear direction. And it's essentially our moral compass, and it keeps us grounded in what we do, how we do it, and how we can make a positive difference in this ever-changing world. So when you think of Mars, think of the 5 principles, because these 2 things go hand in hand. And just to mention on the freedom principle, so as I highlighted in the previous slide, Mars being a privately owned company gives us a unique advantage to be able to invest in money, time, and talent into things that can further our vision. And so if we're talking about the world that we want tomorrow, some of the key things that are important to us are sustainable energy, renewable energy. So you can see investments in things like wind farms and also food safety. And we have both key partnerships with universities and other companies, but also Mars has a global food safety center in China where we're furthering food safety research. So definitely key focus for us on assuring sustainability and food safety for the future. And just a last, I'd say comment on the company profile. Quality is the first principle. So when I mentioned the 5 principles, it's our absolute first. And so we assure that we have the organization, the resources, and the capability to meet our business requirements. We're assuring that we define measurable objectives and progress getting everybody involved and engaging in frequent communications on the importance of quality. So I'm probably preaching to the choir with you guys on, but you know that quality is everybody's job. And of course, we feel the same way at Mars. And so, just to highlight that and really show our commitment, as I mentioned, in 2015, we opened our Global Food Safety Center in China to increase understanding of food safety, further research, and to be able to share our learnings globally. So just want to touch a minute on our quality journey. So what you're seeing here is a little bit of a timeline for Mars. So back around 2014, 2015, we actually organized globally, and we had a central global quality and food safety team that was formed. Prior to this, we operated specifically within our business segments and also very regionally. So we were very decentralized, I would say. And between 2005, and 2008, there were significant quality failings both internally and externally within the food business. And so this was definitely a wake-up call where Mars then started to move a bit more towards a central organization, of course, keeping the entrepreneurial spirit of the segments, but we moved into global segments. So as I mentioned, PET as a global segment, Mars Wrigley as a global segment, and then launched our quality and action strategy. And this was taking into account increasing external pressures from regulators, also taking into account consumer expectations, the changing expectations of consumers. And then, if I fast forward till today, we're now moving from a quality and action strategy to leading quality. And this is taking account advances in technology, of course, advanced analytics and artificial intelligence and all of these types of things, but as well the consideration for, again, the changing consumer, the presence of social media, and these various things that impact the way that we do business. And so this has been our quality journey over the past couple of years. And so when I speak about leading quality, really what's next for us is moving from the basics of quality and food safety management and assuring that we are delivering insights across the value chain. So real-time metrics, assuring that those are taken and turned into actionable insights, moving from a reactive mode to predictive quality risk management, assuring, of course, quality, food safety, and legal, and finally, doing all of this with an enterprise risk approach. Okay. So with that, I think I'm going to hand back over to Glenn for a couple of questions.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. I love hearing the Mars story. I've got some questions for you on the quality journey at Mars, and I'll take the opportunity to remind everyone that you can enter your own questions in the participant panel, and we'll be addressing those in the Q&A portion of today's presentation. So Jamie, can I actually start by asking about yourself? What was your path to becoming a quality leader at such a valued and recognizable brand?
Yeah, sure. I've always been interested in quality and food safety, and it happens to be the path that I decided to take when I started my career coming out of college. As a food scientist, you can choose to go down the quality route, you can choose to go into product development or various other streams, and quality is what really spoke to me. So I had the opportunity actually to intern with Mars when I was finishing my undergraduate degree. And I just fell in love with the company. I fell in love with the 5 principles, and it was really a good fit. And so after I graduated from the University of Kentucky, I took the opportunity to come back to Mars. And as far as my journey in Mars, I started as a quality technician. I did a bit of work in process improvement before taking a quality manager role in Columbus, Ohio at one of our pet manufacturing sites. From there, I moved into central quality and had the opportunity to start the quality systems function. So that was something that was really new to me. And it was through the success of standardizing our processes and systems that actually I found ETQ actually and was able to bring the Reliance solution to Mars. And I'm fortunate today to be able to have the opportunity to lead all of R&D in quality and food safety systems for Mars Incorporated.
Awesome. So you interned as part of your education. How did you know then that you wanted to continue with Mars as your career path?
Yeah, I think it was really the people and the 5 principles. With businesses, there's always a culture, and for me, the culture for Mars really fit my personal culture.
Excellent. Thank you. I have seen the 5 principles displayed prominently in any Mars facility I've ever had the opportunity to visit over the years. Inside all of the meeting rooms, it really is a marvelous culture. Let's move now to the additional challenges of managing quality and food safety globally. You mentioned 450 sites, 80 countries versus that, I'll call it divisionally or domestically, where you started your career.
Right, sure. I think one of the biggest challenges about a global company is the differing regulations. That is key. So every country, every region, they have different expectations. And so you have to define how you're going to set up your quality management system, whether you're going to do it to the most stringent regulations, or you're going to have a system that meets the various regulations. And so I think that's one really key challenge. Another one is differing consumer expectations. I have to laugh and just say I'm not sure that any company is truly domestic anymore. Even if the products they produce are only within one country, due to social media, any bad experience can travel around the world within seconds. And so, this could influence potential consumers, and it definitely immediately can impact the perception that people have about a company.
Excellent. Very true. It truly is a global economy. Let's move to your selection of a global QMS, quality management system, and how Mars ultimately chose ETQ.
Yeah, sure. So in the timeline of our quality journey, I had mentioned there was quite a lot of change in Mars. So Mars was moving to global segments. So we were standardizing the way that we managed quality around the world, but also across our business segments. We aligned that, quality needed to be in place, of course, whether we're manufacturing pet food or we're manufacturing, Snickers bars, it's all equally important. And so quality and food safety is probably one of the places we didn't want to be innovative about. We wanted to make sure that we were meeting expectations. And so through this journey of standardization, we went through a quite rigorous selection process for somebody to provide a quality management system or tool for us. And ETQ was one of those that was, reviewed. It ultimately became the one that Mars selected, I think, for two key reasons. The first was about the flexibility of the platform and the ability for us to take a very great starting point with a standard business process, but do some simple configurations to make sure that it could match and support our unique Mars business processes. So I think that was the first reason. The second one is definitely customer service. And I can say we started working with ETQ in 2010, so it's been nearly 10 years now. And still today, customer service is really strong. And so I think the culture of ETQ and Mars seem to really mesh together. And, when I think about it, our implementation consultant that we worked with on our very first project, we're still in contact with him today. And so I think we've just adopted him into our Mars family. So he's one of us. So definitely flexibility of platform and culture at customer service.
Great, thank you. Can you give the group some idea of the scope of your current QMS, your food safety processes that are covered by ETQ Reliance?
Yeah, so it's quite extensive, in fact. So we have over 14 business processes that we run on ETQ's platform. And just to give you, I can list out a few. We control our documents, so quality and food safety documentation. We run our audit processes, so internal audit, audits of suppliers, and then the corresponding corrective action processes we run on ETQ's platform. We also do all of our management reviews, so review of our quality and food safety data through the platform. We manage our product-related incidences, our product non-conformances, and as I mentioned, we manage all of our supplier processes, so the verification of our suppliers, the non-conformances that come from those audits, as well as our essentially assessing the risk of our raw materials and packaging materials. A few more processes that we run are our Food Safety Management Program, which covers the HACCP and Food Safety Modernization Act requirements. And we have key interfaces. Of course, ETQ is our main quality management system, but we interface with our SAP platform. We interface with Business Warehouse as well as the Microsoft Azure Data Lake.
Great. Very extensive. Can you give us some examples where the flexibility of your ETQ solution that you mentioned as a key criteria has helped you meet a particular business need of Mars?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one key example is Mars has a very specific incident management process. So if we experience a product-related incident, it follows a very specific process because we take that very seriously and we want to assure consistency and professionalism in the way that they're managed. Because this process is quite unique to Mars, it wasn't available as an off-the-shelf offering from ETQ Solution. But because the platform is very flexible, we were able to configure the solution to support this process very simply. And so, it's the configuration, it can be done by a business person. I think that's one of the key features. It doesn't require somebody with programming understanding to do the majority of the work. And so very easily and quickly, we could stand up this process for Mars, which is a critical enabler for us to do incident management.
Great example. Okay, let's talk next about the benefits Mars has seen as a result of harmonizing quality food safety processes across such a large and diverse global organization.
Okay. Yeah, I think, one of the key benefits that I see, and it's one of those things that you can't necessarily put a price or a dollar figure to, is the ability for a global organization to speak the same language. And so, as I was mentioning, with different businesses, different countries having different regulations, and of course, each business having its unique way of working, by standardizing on the same quality system, we start to speak the same language. So everybody understands the CAPA or corrective action process. When you talk about it, people can understand, steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and how to achieve that. And so, when we talk about managing a product-related incident, as I mentioned earlier, everybody knows those steps, whether that's the quality function or the supply function. They know how it's recorded in our quality system, so into ETQ, and they understand the expectations and the roles and responsibilities. And in doing this, this is where then the realized benefit comes into play, because from there, we now have global data. We have a global picture of being able to see what's going on or what has happened in our network, and we can use that data to move towards predicting future events. And so conducting risk assessments on scenarios where you actually have true likelihood of occurrence data, it's so powerful. And what we have seen over the 10 years of having this implemented is that we've had an increase in reporting of potential incidences, and we've had a decrease in actual realized incidences. So the scale and the criticality of those incidences have been reduced because the visibility and the way that the processes run has become standardized. It's really powerful.
Excellent. That really is a testament to the culture that's in place at Mars, and that really does go top to bottom. You mentioned supply. Can you please tell us a little bit more about how Mars is extending your internal quality food safety processes to external parties, such as suppliers?
Sure. So I think everybody can understand the risk that a supply chain can pose. And so I guess regardless of where you sit in that supply chain, there's people upstream of you and there's people downstream of you on it. And with Mars, because we're manufacturing food products, upstream from us are the suppliers of those raw materials and packaging materials. And so we've just configured a supplier portal. So just to explain a little bit, Mars internally hosts our ETQ platform, but we've just launched a cloud version of ETQ so that our suppliers can respond to corrective actions. So we may go and conduct an audit of one of our suppliers, and if we find any opportunities for improvement, we can send those directly from our internal ETQ to the cloud version of ETQ, where the supplier can directly respond to those corrective actions. And so we're really excited about that because it just extends our quality management system, of course, one step further, and really integrates the process. And so this is something that we're in the process of deploying globally. We've got a handful of our suppliers on it, but look to expand that throughout this year.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything to add on how data captured in the QMS can help Mars be more proactive about the risks that you're seeing and how you continue to address them?
Yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough how the standardization and the collection of the data has improved our ability to do exactly what you mentioned, to use that data for the next step, which is these advanced analytics, or the possibility for the power of prediction. And just to give you an insight, some of the things that we're trying to quantify is risk, right? And so we want to be able to understand potentially where risk is coming from, whether it's risk from one of our suppliers or risk in shipping product to a specific region of the country. And the data that we're capturing through the ETQ solution, because it's standardized, because it's globally deployed, this data is able to be used and input into the predictive processes. So really powerful. And I would say it wouldn't be done. It wouldn't be able to be done if we hadn't invested, I would say, into a standard platform early on.
Great. Any lessons that you might want to share, lessons learned on deploying a QMS across an organization? I know you didn't start out globally, but any lessons that you might be able to share with us?
Yeah, sure. I would say leadership is absolutely a must. This is something that's really hard to do at the grassroots level. I mean, it can be initiated, there, but if you're going to expand this globally or, in a company with the size of Mars, leadership has to be there. They have to be committed to doing things in a standard way, because otherwise, it would become very difficult to get the buy-in and to get something like this deployed. I would also say to make sure that you have clearly defined and agreed processes before starting the systems side of things. So I think it's maybe one of the myths is that by implementing a quality management system, you can fix your quality management processes. And I think actually you need to have aligned and standardized processes to then have those systems to enable the process. And I think the last point I would bring is that continuous improvement is really required to continually make sure that the system is fit for purpose. It continues to meet regulations, and of course, it continues to meet the user's needs. And that's one of the areas where I think ETQ as a platform has been very strong, because it's easy to continuously improve, but also the platform itself is continuously improving. So on the Mars side, we're always doing small things to make sure the users are happy and that we're meeting our processes. But on the ETQ side, you're also looking at, is the platform fit for purpose? Is it also meeting external regulations and updating? And I think so the two processes together really work well.
Excellent, because things never stand still.
No, it's true.
Yes, very true. How about sharing any best practices that you might have put in place?
Oh gosh, when we initially started out and we were deploying this just to our North America pet care region, we were probably a little bit more relaxed about how we defined process and how we developed and how we implemented continuous improvement. So as we grew and deployed the platform globally, we became much more stringent on our development and release process, our continuous improvement process, and assuring really robust documentation on the technical side, as well as training material for the users. So what I would say from a best practice standpoint is start off as though you plan to expand this to your entire company. And if you put those best practices in place at the start, it makes growing much easier.
Probably less painful. Excellent advice.
Glenn, let me jump in real quick. This is Maria. I just wanted to ask you if you could just speak a little bit louder. Some folks are saying they're having trouble hearing the questions. They can hear Jamie's responses, but yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. And how do you personally, as well as Mars, measure success?
Ooh, that's a good question. So personally, I would say I measure success by the user stories or the feedback that I get. And I say this because anyone who works in systems would understand that there's always going to be things that can be done better. There's always going to be improvements that users want. It's a space where people are never quite satisfied, so which is good. But when I get emails or people reach out and they talk about and they tell me about the value that the system has brought to them, or in really unfortunate situations, if the system goes down because we've had server issues and people are reaching out to me frantically saying, ETQ is down, I know then how critical and important it is to our business operations. And so those are really proud moments to me that says, this is successful because it's an integrated part of people's jobs. They're reaching out to express, how it's helping them. And just to hear whether I'm talking to the global quality director of the Mars Wrigley segment when they talk about a process like PRIMP in the same way as the global quality director for food in a business of over 125,000 associates, that's pretty successful to me. So it's huge excitement. And if I had to say, how does Mars define success? Mars defines success by, putting products out there that are meeting consumers' expectation and essentially assuring trust and delight, right? And our quality management processes and systems are an integral part to assuring that happens. And so Mars's investment, I would say, both in resources and finance into assuring that we can do that shows, I think, the trust in what we're doing, and also the confidence in the platform. So, and that's definitely success for us.
Perfect. What about any challenges you might want to highlight or share with us?
Oh gosh, I mean, funding is always a challenge. I think that's probably everybody understands that, right? Yep. And and so it goes back to that business case, right? Have a really good and compelling business case for what you're doing. If you can show the return and that something's going to bring, then funding becomes available. So that's key. I think another one, which people are probably laughing because they're the same for all businesses, but the ability to receive or accept change in their current ways of working. So don't get me wrong, when we embarked on this journey to standardize hundreds of locations, everyone didn't just, come along holding hands and skipping, of course. We definitely were faced with some adversity. And so that is going to be the case. But, ultimately, because the business benefit is there, because people ultimately saw that what we were trying to do was bringing value, they were willing to come on the journey. And I'd say the last challenge, or maybe, I don't know, is it a challenge or a best practice? Make sure to have a roadmap and a plan. So have an idea of what scope you're trying to take on, how you plan to set that project up and deploy it, and communicate and gain commitment. Because the challenge side of it is, without a clear plan, without clear communication, it's really difficult to actually gain the commitment.
Sure. And ultimately, you need that commitment from your, I'll call them your audience, your community. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Next, what I'm going to do is summarize what I've heard from ETQ's perspective, and then we're going to take some questions from our participants. So ETQ really believes that customers like Mars, who really and truly embrace their quality management system, make continuous improvement, quality, and food safety a key part of their culture, gain a significant competitive advantage. I've worked with a lot of customers during my 20 years with ETQ. I have literally done 1,000 demonstrations of our solution. I want to echo from both mine and ETQ's experience the key ingredients to success that Jamie mentioned. I'll start with that executive buy-in, that support from the top. That really is a requirement for a cultural change. And making it such a strong value at a company like Mars. everybody needs a strong champion like Jamie, who has that plan, has a vision, and as she mentioned, can communicate it to get buy-in. People are naturally resistant to change if they don't understand it. Having that vision and the ability to communicate it gets that buy-in and helps reduce the, I'll call it the friction. A strong partnership with your software provider, in this case, ETQ. A flexible solution like Reliance that can give you a quick return on investment, allow you to prove success, and then be flexible enough to adapt to your ever-changing business needs. As Jamie mentioned, you constantly need to refine and to tweak because nothing stands still. On the next slide, I'm going to outline some of the characteristics of our solution that Mars has put to such excellent use. Our platform contains what I think of as 5 characteristics that are inherited, available to every application running on the platform. Again, I want to highlight what Mars has done with each of these important, you can think of them as genetic characteristics of ETQ Reliance. First is that connectivity. Your processes are all related. Reliance automatically links related records together, gives you the ability to share data between processes, and this improves both accuracy, data quality, at the same time cutting down on manual effort of copy-paste and the frequencies of just human error. Jamie mentioned doc control audits, corrective actions. She also mentioned suppliers and risk as just a couple of examples. Secondly, we've got integration. Data from other systems, such as your ERP, or for some of you, a PLM, a product lifecycle management tool, is often needed to get that big picture that Mars has and to move from being reactive to proactive. Sometimes that means publishing quality data to an external source, such as Mars is doing with a business warehouse or their cloud-based data lake, and you guys are specifically using Azure. The external collaboration is the third one that you've deployed so well. Securely extending your internal quality processes to an external party, such as a supplier. And of course, making sure that they see only what's relevant to them. This improves timeliness, visibility, accountability of those external parties, and has provided some fantastic return on investment, not just to Mars, but to some other ETQ customers as well. Jamie mentioned the SCAPA process, as you guys refer to it, a great starting point for external collaboration that's just built right into Reliance. Fourth, the contextual awareness, as we call it. The idea that a global organization wants to harmonize a process as much as possible, but occasionally you'll have a business segment, a business unit, even a site that has some unique requirements that have got to be accommodated. It might be a regulatory concern for where they're doing business or where the product's sold, and you want to accommodate that without impacting the other sites or business units as much as practical. We provide this capability as a standard feature. It flows from security down to making a process unique for just people at a particular site. And then adaptability. Jamie mentioned the ability to adapt to pre-configured best practices that we provide out of box, and once trained, even permit customers to deploy in their own applications that are unique to them. Mars has done both. They've taken some of our out of box and used them as the starting point, and they've created several of their own unique processes that, again, are inheriting all of these characteristics from the platform. As we transition to the Q&A portion, I've got some additional resources that might be of interest to you. Please enter your questions if you haven't already done so. On our website, there's a number of items that might be of interest to you. There's some case studies from organizations like Subway, Manitoba Foods, Carolina Beverage Group, and more. We've got some analyst reports including the newest the Gartner Market Guide for QMS software that came out just a little earlier this month, a white paper for FISMA 2020, some webinars, some videos, and more. Next, we're going to your questions. I'll turn it over to Maria to host our Q&A.
Thank you so much, Glenn and Jamie, for a really interesting conversation. We have a lot of questions, so I'm going to jump right in to see if we can answer as many as possible. The first question, this is for Jamie. Before you had ETQ Reliance in place, can you describe how you previously executed quality processes across the company?
Yeah, so we were very localized, and many of the processes were paper-based, and if they weren't paper-based, some of our units were leveraging like Lotus Notes or Access databases, but the quality management system was specific to the factory and at best the business unit.
Okay. And how many users do you have for the system? Are there restrictions on concurrent use, and are licenses required?
So I can answer specifically for Mars, and Glenn, if you want to build, feel free. But for Mars, we have concurrent users. We have quite a lot of licenses. I believe we have over 200 licenses at this point because we have quite a lot of users. I would say over 10,000 users of the system. And you do have to have that concurrent license in order to use the system. The positive part is that it's concurrent, so if you're not logged in, that seat is available for somebody else. Any builds, Glenn, from your side on that?
Yeah, just one thing to add. Jamie, you mentioned a little while ago that you were an on-premise customer on premises. Most new customers that are coming on are more interested in the cloud and frankly passing that, I'll call it the burden, the rather mundane tasks like maintaining uptime and patching infrastructure and so on onto the vendor. So with that cloud presence, we've got some additional licensing capabilities. And they include things that are monthly active users, both users who are inputting data as well as for readers only. So we've got a couple of options for customers coming on today.
Okay, thank you. Do you use ETQ for data analytics and/or data science?
So with Mars, we don't use the platform itself for the data analytics. We use the data that comes from the system. One of the great things, and I mentioned that ETQ as a platform is always evolving, is they're starting to look to use the data that's input into the system to drive kind of, a bit of learning into the system. So I'm trying to think of an example, but if I'm talking about my incident management module, maybe the system could suggest to me incidences that were similar to the one I'm inputting based on the data in the system. So these are the types of things that they're looking at incorporating into the platform. And Glenn, I don't know if you want to maybe give a further or better example than I've given.
Perfect example. So as users are entering, we want to use the underlying, I'll call it intelligence, the analytics engine to actually suggest perhaps things like actions, categorization of how you might rank that incident, can help look at some of the risk values. We know how often something similar has occurred. So we're simply guiding the user, and over time, we want to present more and more of this as the system learns and accumulates data that decisions can be based on. I keep emphasizing the word suggest. We always expect that there will be a level of human involvement and, of course, responsibility ultimately.
All right, thank you. Have you implemented the change management module? And if so, what has your experience been?
So yeah, this is an interesting one. This is probably one where we've took a little liberty at Mars, as we sometimes do. We've implemented the change management module, but we implemented it to manage the change across our quality management system. So instead of using it to manage change in the business or in the organization, we use it to manage the change of the system itself. So it's a little bit unique, and it's been a highly, highly positive experience for us. So the process and the module itself has been great. And in fact, when we have our external audits, it's one of the areas where we're highly praised for such robust change management process. But again, that's change of the quality management system itself, not of our business process.
Okay. Does ETQ work with Microsoft ERP?
I'll take that one. Yes, we use some very industry standard connection methodologies. So really we can communicate with just about any modern software, including some that have been developed in-house by our customers. So absolutely yes to Microsoft and just about anything else that's current.
Okay, and this seems like an add-on to that also. Is integration of ETQ software with SAP possible? If so, how?
Absolutely. We again provide a couple of industry standard methodologies. There are bidirectional web services. We can both consume and trigger calls to other systems. We can pass data back and forth, either based on some sort of event or on a scheduled basis. We've also got folks that want to move data in just structured files, be that XML or even structured, more text-based files that might be coming out of another system. By the way, SAP is one of our most common implementations. Certainly not the only one, but is among the most common that we see.
Great, thank you. Jamie mentioned real-time metrics. How do you capture, track, and trend metrics? How does this happen in real time, and how do you define real time?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I mean, when we're defining real time, it's, what is the time period that's critical to have this information? So an example for our publishing of metrics, we do this on a periodic basis for our kind of dashboard. So that's real time from a dashboarding perspective. But when we're speaking about something like, let's say a non-conformance or like a supplier non-conformity, real time truly means real time in the sense where we have end-to-end integrations that include our ETQ processes, to where if we receive a raw material, we conduct a test, and we find that that test is non-conforming, that connection is immediate to then change the status of that supplier, so that if the next load is received, we are, testing that based upon the new status of the supplier. So it's real time, or how real time it needs to be is on the criticality of the process, and I think that's something that's key to define. But for us, it definitely differs. Some it's in fact within the minute, and in others it's more on a weekly or periodic basis.
All right, thank you. Can you elaborate on your predictive quality risk management? What are the key components?
Oh, yeah, that's a broad question. So the predictive quality risk management, let me just mention one key area of focus. We always at Mars want to be a learning organization, and so we want to learn from the past and essentially not repeat issues that we've had in the past. And so one of the key focuses for us is to use data coming from our quality management system to predict where we might have an issue before the issue occurs. And we would do so by identifying like the key factors to take into that prediction. So, you know, what type of issues have we seen at this particular factory? What part of the line? What was the reason for the nonconformity, or what was the failure mode? So taking into account this data that we're collecting and using that to see if there are conditions surrounding it that would allow us to be able to predict when it might happen again, or perhaps not even at that specific factory, but at a similar factory where we might be able to prevent a failure because we've been able to see signs from similar locations.
All right, thank you. How do you deal with language barriers around the world?
That is actually a fantastic question. For many of our processes within Mars, the standard language is English. So there's key processes that we require to be, the system is in English, and the entry of the information is required to be in English. But where the processes move into, say, shop floor associates, ETQ Reliance has the ability to allow language translation. And so we do take advantage of this. I think the two or three main languages that we have, we translate for China, Russia, and I believe Portuguese, but I can also, Glenn, let you give a little more insight into technically how that occurs.
Yes, we've got a set of tools to help customers deploy the system in their desired languages. Like Mars, many do require some in English, some key points, some key processes be communicated in English. We've also got some customers who have simply added additional steps where they've got a critical sort of event that might need an additional translation step. But this too is an out-of-box capability of Reliance. We are just now releasing the system in multiple languages. We used to provide just English only as the basics, but we're now providing a total of 5, including English, pre-translations, I'll call them, and that's brand new. So a head start, if you will, on a number of different languages, the ones that we've heard most often from our customers, as well as tools to help you maintain those, and of course to incorporate any personalizations, anything unique to the customer's organization.
Okay. How difficult was it to effectively communicate the training and new ways of working through the global organization? What would you have done differently?
Yeah, it was not easy. I mean, I'm just going to say that. It wasn't easy because, again, you're coming in and you're changing the way that people are doing their work in some cases. The benefit, I would say, is we had a very clear plan and we had very strong leadership commitment. And so when we went in to do training or to implement these new processes, we had conversations with our partners around the world, you know, our business segments. And so Mars is a very collaborative culture. It's just in our nature. So we're not so much about, we don't kind of come in and say, like, this is how you're doing it, and I'm sorry if you don't like it. It's more of, this is the new process. Let's talk about it. You know, where are the pain points? And, you know, when our business segments would raise points that were very valid, and the points were globally valid, that's where that CIP, or that continuous improvement loop, is so valuable, because we were able to fairly quickly and easily implement those suggestions. And sometimes by just listening to what your users are saying and bringing in some of their suggestions definitely helped with the buy-in. So it wasn't easy, but it was possible. And I think from a global deployment perspective, my team is fairly small from a corporate point of view. Mars, again, as I mentioned, it's fairly decentralized, and so we don't have a large corporate center. And so the way that we chose to do deployments was by identifying regional segment functional experts who were accountable for being trained by my team, and then they then cascaded the training into their regional segment, and that worked very well for us.
Great. Well, we're just about at. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. A new offering from ETQ that didn't exist when Mars deployed is a web-based training as a service solution that we now have, and I think could have helped with some of that.
Very good. So we're just about at time, but there's one last question I wanted to ask. What do you see as the top 3 quality benefits to Mars that ETQ has helped you achieve?
Yeah, I think definitely global standardized business processes, a common language to speak, so we can speak one language around the world about our quality management processes, and access to global data to be used for future analytics.
Okay, great. So we're just at time. Are there any closing comments from Jamie or Glenn?
Just, thanks for this opportunity. I hope everybody found it to be useful and had a lot of fun. So thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Great. So thanks to both of you, Jamie and Glenn, for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you, of course, to our sponsor, ETQ. And thank you to our attendees for listening in today. In lieu of the poll that we were going to conduct during the webinar, we're actually going to send a survey out with the webinar recording tomorrow. So we encourage everybody to participate in that as well. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.